Hello everyone, we're going to be covering the tools and we're going to break this down into 3 sections. So to start off, I'm just going to go ahead and explain what each one of these tools does. So I'm going to have this video again broken into 3 different parts. My selection tools, these are my content creation tools, and I came up with these terms myself. They don't really have a name, but I like to give everything a name even if it doesn't have one. And then I call these my content modifiers, my navigation tools, color tools, and then the extra properties for each tool located here at the bottom. Again, make sure that you use your little slider here and make this a dual column. And then what we're going to do is, in the first part of this video, I'm going to focus solely on my content creation tools. And I'm going to go ahead and just undock this and exit. Gives me a little bit more room in the workspace here to show you. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to break down each one of these tools one by one, and I'm only going to focus on these tools in this area. So for the first tool, I'll go ahead and use my pen tool. Now, if you've ever used Adobe Illustrator before, this is a really popular tool in that software. Works pretty much the same, but I would say not as well as some people like. And I just went ahead and just did some clicking and dragging, and then I'll do it one more time. I'm just going to click and drag and sort of get these beziers and round edges going. And then when I'm ready to close off my object, if I hover directly over the starting point with that white box, you'll notice I get a little white circle right next to my pen tool. I'm going to double click and you'll notice that just closes it. And then a couple things briefly touching base on these tools is, if I use my selection tool, I can adjust these lines like so. And in certain areas, you'll notice that here I get a curved line directly underneath my arrow, which allows me to adjust the curve. And over here, I'll get a right angle, which is allows me to adjust the point. So you'll notice there's a couple different types of things that you can do there. Then with your sub-selection tool, this is your selection tool, this is your sub-selection tool. You can click on the line, you'll notice that you have all these little points. These little points here would be where you can get right angles, and then the points in between is where you would get bends. And then you can also do some bending yourself here. I just clicked on a point and sort of maneuvered it around, and then you can, auto recovery on there. Then you can go ahead and just adjust these lines for the curvature, these little blue bars here with the little blue dots, and this adjusts sort of our bezier of our curve. A couple other things we can take notice to is also the free transform tool, which allows us to go ahead and adjust, rotate, scale, and so on and so forth. Now the other things with the pen tool is its extra settings. In the extra settings, I want you to always keep object drawing off for now. Now, going back into these settings, I can adjust the size of my stroke, and a lot of these other tools have these options too. So this should create a thicker line, and it does. And let's go ahead and let's just say 50. And you'll notice right away the difference in thickness of the line. So I'm going to bring it back down to 3 for now. And in the pen tool, you'll notice I have a little arrow key right here, right in the bottom corner of it. And if I click and hold, that means it has sub-selections, and it also has keyboard shortcuts located right here to any sub-selection that you have. So we have add anchor point. I can just go ahead and click, create and add one of those little white dots pretty much. And then I have delete anchor point. And let's just say I want to delete this one. You'll notice that just deleted that anchor point. And convert to anchor point. Let's just say, there we go. It just converted it to an anchor point. And those are pretty much all the sub-selection tools that you have on the pen tool. The pen tool probably has the most sub-selection tools. So that covers the pen tool. I'm going to just delete this. Now going into the text tool, the text tool is pretty self-explanatory. It creates text. hello. And I can go ahead and I can adjust all of these to whatever I would like, whatever font I would like. I can change the size of it, small or large, and let's say 120, and you'll notice it just goes larger. I can adjust the format of it, align left, center, right, justify. I can scroll down here, and I'm working in that custom workspace that I had created in an earlier video. And this is really all the settings that I really need to worry about right now. You can add filters. Something like a drop shadow might be kind of cool. And I just made a really severe one there. Let me go ahead and bring that down a little bit. Let's make that 8. Let's make it high. Let's change this to like 12 and this to like 70. And now when I click off, you should see a pretty big difference. So you can add some cool little filters on there as well. That's pretty much it for the text tool. One more thing about the text tool, though, that works well in combination with it is a lot of times with text, especially text, you want to have things aligned correctly. So I have this center aligned. I'm going to go ahead and just touch base again on the line tool. If I select on the align here in this bar located right next to the properties and library, if I click on it and I go to, I have to make sure I have this align to stage checked on. And then I'm going to go ahead, let's just say center align and center align. And that's align vertical and align horizontal. I can align it to the left. I can distribute to the left, so or to the top, and all types of things. So let's just keep it simple and just go straight for the center point, and that is my hello right there. Now, other things I can do, I'm going to go ahead and just use my line tool. I'm going to keep this at 3, and just the style, I can change it to a dashed line if I like, or whatever. And then I can adjust the width to different types of width. I'm just going to keep it standard, and I'm going to go ahead and just underline it here. And now I've created an underline, and I was just using shift. I was holding down the shift button in order to keep that straight line. Now, pushing forward, again, keep this object drawing off. Going to my rectangle tool, I only want to focus on just the rectangle tool, not the rectangle primitive tool. The rectangle primitive tool acts as if object drawing is on, and I don't want that. So, and I don't think you guys should be using it yet either. So I'm going to focus with my rectangle tool. It allows you to do far less editing to any shapes that you create, and it gets confusing to work with because you can't edit the shape without actually sort of entering its file. And while I'm at it, I might as well just show you. I'm going to turn on my object drawing on my rectangle tool. Create a shape. And when I select it, it's just this object with a blue outline around it. Now I can't modify it unless I double click on it, and now you'll see drawing object, and now I could do some types of modifications to it. But to just start learning this stuff, you definitely want to keep object drawing off, because right here on my main stage, I don't have to double click on it and get all confused. I can just edit it directly on the stage, so it makes it much easier to work within a file. So keep object drawing off and stay away from primitive, oval primitive, or rectangle primitive tools. So again, I can always adjust these options in here, and again, I can create just a oval of any shape I'd like. And one thing to keep in mind with the colors here, black fill color is the fill color of the shape. So let's just go to a blue and create a blue. You'll notice I have my stroke color, which is this color here, and my fill color located here. So my stroke color is my dark outline located around the circle, whereas my fill color is the color within it. Holding shift again will keep the constraints even, and I can create circles that way, perfect circles and perfect squares. Now moving forward, I have my polystar tool. Now it's funny that they call it a polystar tool when the shape of it is a hexagon. So I'm going to click on that, and you're going to notice right off the bat, yours might create a star if it does. If it doesn't, and it created this pentagon, cool. If you want to create a pentagon, in this particular case, go to Options, and then change the style from polygon to star. And now you'll see I created a star. So again, in your options here, your tool settings and your properties, the polystar tool, it's really confusing because the shape is a hexagon, but you can create stars or polygons with it. So they call it the polystar tool. And polygon, and you can just change the number of sides and star point size and so on and so forth. And now I've just created an octagon. So those are the shape tools. That's what I call these three little tools. The shape tools are 4 tools here because you get line, rectangle, oval, and polystar. Now I've also got my pencil tool. My pencil tool, before I push forward, I'm going to delete all the stuff on the main stage. And my pencil tool is very interesting. So the pencil tool, I'm going to keep it at 3, let's make it a 5 thickness just to make it a little bit thicker. Now the thing to keep in mind with the pencil tool itself is that when trying to sort of create filled in shapes, let's just say the pencil tool is a really tricky tool to learn how to use right off the bat. So I'm going to say something like that, and then now the pencil tool is the most frustrating for beginners to learn, and the reason being is because I'm trying to use my fill bucket tool in the content modifiers here, this section here, and I'm trying to fill it in, and it looks like it's a filled shape, but it's really not. And this is why it's so confusing. If I go ahead and zoom in here, and I go ahead and I look at this line, it looks like it's a closed shape, but in all actuality it's not, and I'm about to show you why. Going back to that adjusting curved lines and right angle lines, these are the points that I'm talking about when it comes to vector-based art. So I'm going to click and hold on this right angle here, and I'm going to drag off, and you'll notice that it's not connected here. Now if I take this one, I can bring it over here, it should snap into place. And over here, you'll notice these are connected because this was all one line. But these, oh, there we go, we're not. So I need to make sure that I snap these into place. Now, when I go ahead and hover over here, since they snapped, you'll notice that all the lines move together. Again here, they should do the same now as well. And in here, you'll notice you get these all move around together. Now, continuing from this point, I also had this area. Again, I'm going to try to use my fill bucket tool. Oop. Doesn't work because it's not all connected. Now there is a little trick that might work that we could use to sort of trick Adobe Animate into making it fill the shape in. And in your extra settings here, this is an important feature, is going to don't close small gaps or close small gaps, close medium gaps, close large gaps. So this is probably going to be a large gap if it works, and it did. Let's go ahead and try close medium. Medium worked, and it even went all the way through here. So there you see the slight difference between the two of those. Let's try small gaps. Small gaps does not work. So this isn't a small enough gap for this to read it as. And mind you, I'm zoomed in at 575%. And then don't close gaps. Obviously, it's not going to work because this is technically a gap and a separate line. Now, let's just say I wanted to connect these and get rid of this because whatever. You can do that as well. And they should snap right onto each other. And there they are, closed object. Fill bucket tool with don't close gaps. And it'll fill. because now it is officially a closed object. So that is the trickiest part about the pencil tool. Now going forward to our brush tool. I'll get to the paintbrush tool in a minute. This is a new tool, and it's really, really neat, actually. So let me go ahead and delete this. I'm going to go to my brush tool. Now, when you first start creating animations and creating content in Adobe Animate, this is probably your best bet of a tool to use when you're just starting, because it's the easiest tool to use. There's really no tricks. When you draw a line, sure, it might smooth this out a little bit, but other than that, what you see is what you get. And unlike using this pencil tool, let's just pretend I wanted to color this all in, right? Using the pencil tool. And I'm going to do this again, and this again, and this again, and I was just trying to color this whole thing in. The difference between the two of these tools is a huge, major difference. This outline here, right? This outline on the brush tool itself, this line does not use the same mathematical equations that these lines do. Now you'll see that each one of these lines, let's go into my brush tool. When I select my brush tool that I just created with my brush, it highlights the entire thing. When I go over to my pencil tool lines, you'll notice each one of these is a separate individual line. These lines take up lots of memory, so you do not want to fill anything in. This will really can make or break a project, especially when it becomes larger, because it takes so much memory for something to be colored in using the pencil tool versus the brush tool. So the brush tool acts the same as basically the fill bucket tool. And when creating maybe outline work is when you would use the pencil tool, whereas you're creating filled in colors, something that you would color in, you would use the brush tool. Otherwise, you're going to run into some serious lag, crashing issues, and then you'll have that auto recovery feature really kick in and save your butt. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to hit this little center stage just to center it. And now I've got one last tool here, and this is new. And I haven't played around with it much, but I've messed around with it enough to know what it does. And at first, it's sort of tricky. It gives you this illusion that it's kind of like this new tool that really doesn't do anything. Now, the thing about this particular tool is you need to make sure that in your windows, you have your brush library open. And I docked my brush library in here earlier because I knew I was going to show you some of the awesome features that this brush tool has. So instead of just, it has your sort of standard brush features that your other brush tool has or your pencil tool has, but this is your brush tool. I'm going to go into my brush library and I'm going to show you, let's just say I want to go into artistic, and by default you'll notice these are my widths and my styles, and by default it doesn't have any of these in here, which makes it really tricky to work with. So let's just say I want to go to this charcoal and let's do charcoal scribble. Alright, let's try the scribble one. Double click, it says right there, double click to add to document, and you'll notice it becomes available right here under style. Now that is a really, really cool feature. This is something entirely brand new to Adobe Animate, from formerly known as Adobe Flash, and this is a really common thing that a lot of people have always complained about, that Adobe Flash, or now known as Animate, doesn't have a nice brush palette. So it never really had any kind of way to import brushes or anything like that, and now it has added that for you, which is really, really awesome. So I'm going to just go ahead and show you with this particular tool. I'm going to go around and you'll see that I get some of these really nice little feathered kind of lines from the charcoal that I had chosen. Let's go ahead and choose just one more. Let's try decorative banners, and let's try this one. I have not seen it yet before. I'm going to go ahead and just draw around, and it creates a little banner for you. So it's really, really neat. And just because we're playing around with it, let's do one more. And let's go to pattern brushes. I hear these are really interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and try, let's try this crystals one, or I don't know, this one. They're all seem pretty cool. And I'm going to go ahead and mess around with that and see what happens. And I get that same exact pattern. So that is a super amazing feature that they have added to this software. Now, as far as the content creation tools goes, that covers all of them. I will create another video on the selection tools as well as the content modifier tools, and I'll briefly touch base on the navigation tools, but these you should probably already have figured out, but just in case you haven't, we'll get into those too. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one where we cover more in depth the extra tools of Adobe Animate.